You're listening to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, Episode 2. Welcome to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, and as you may have guessed, I'm your host, Vari. Since stepping away from the 9-to-5 world back in 2009, I've been a creative director, illustrator, artist, business mentor, and coach to fellow creative types. The intention with this podcast is to offer a fresh perspective about what it really means to be a working creative. I'll offer some simple strategies to add a little more joy to your days and share stories and insights from my own lessons learned, often the hard way, from over a decade of being my own boss. Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, guys. It's great to have you here. In this week's podcast, I want to address the question that I get asked all the time as a coach. And that question is, what exactly is coaching and why do I need it? Now, I decided to do this topic this week as I had a client this morning and it was their very first coaching session, not just with me, but with any coach before. And the first thing they said on the call was, "You're going to have to tell me what to do. I don't know how to do this. I've never did this before." And that's a response I get a lot of the time. Often people aren't quite aware exactly what life coaching is and how it can benefit their lives, but also people can think that they need to be more prepared, they need to be worthy of being coached, they need to have done their homework beforehand, and that is not the case. When I have clients in that first session, I love when they come in with no agenda, nothing prepared, because we can really get down to what it is that's bothering them, what's stressing them out, and what needs to be shifted in their life to help them feel happier and have a better life. So I really love this when people come in with no agenda. Now, there are many different types of coach, especially in the life coaching area, and I can't speak to how other coaches coach, but with me, my intention is to help my clients work through their own problems. So it's not about me going in and giving them a quick fix. I know there can be some coaching experiences where people go in with an issue, they get a list of here's all the things you need to do to fix it. But for me, it's almost like taking a painkiller to fix a broken arm, right? It's never going to fix the actual problem. And that's the way I like to approach coaching with my clients. Yeah, sure, I could give them the painkiller and the problem would go away for a short amount of time. But the problem with that type of coaching is as soon as the pain comes back, the client's going to come running back to me and ask me to fix it again for them. The type of coaching that I like to do with clients is to really help them see what the main cause of the issue or problem is, allow them to recognize it, give them the awareness of it, and allow them to make changes by themselves. This creates so much deeper transformation and longer transformation in my clients' lives, and it's the type of coaching that I like to be coached on and also how I like to work with my clients. Now, when it comes to coaching, there's a heap of different coaches out there. There are business coaches to help you with your business. There are sports coaches to help you with a particular sport. You can have a relationship coach to help you in your relationship. You can hire a health coach or a fitness coach to help you hit those health and fitness goals that you have for yourself. The way that I look at life coaching is it helps us get better at life. And for me, this encompasses all of the other areas. It's about our business, our relationships, and our bodies. It's not about putting a big, happy, smiley sticker on our life. It's about getting comfortable with feeling all the emotions that are available to us in this human experience. It's not about turning a blind eye to the negative emotions. It's about allowing them to come through and having an amazing life with that full range of emotion. My coach recently reminded me of this really incredible visualization that helps me to really understand this concept. So if you imagine there being a scale, and in the middle of the scale we have 0, and to the right hand side we have +10, and to the left-hand side, we have -10. Now, to live a full life, we need to be willing to experience from -10 all the way through to +10. I've always loved this Buddhist concept of equanimity, and I used to make that mean that I should narrow that window of emotions, that I shouldn't get too excited and get too far along the right-hand side, and I shouldn't get too disappointed too far down the left-hand side of the scale. If I stayed somewhere between +2 and -2, then my life would be good. But now I can see that that is not the case. It's about being open and capable of experience the entire scale, to be willing to feel the whole range while still maintaining a sense of balance and groundedness. So if we limit our life to just living between +2 and -2, we're missing out on such a richness of our lives. And especially as artists and creatives, it's very, very hard to stay stuck in such a narrow window of emotions. But if we're unwilling to feel things that are uncertain, things that feel risky, if we're unwilling to perhaps fail at something, these emotions might be down at that -7, -8 end of the scale. If we're unwilling to go there and we pull ourselves back to 0, then we won't be able to reach the +7 and +8 on the other side of the scale. So when we're unwilling to experience some of those harder, darker emotions, it robs us of the opportunity to experience the happier, more joyful ones on the other end of the scale. Often when we start to push ourselves towards those further reaching emotions, if we take a chance, we take a risk, we put ourselves out there in a way we haven't did before, often when that doesn't feel comfortable, we quickly retract and get back to 0, and we don't allow ourselves to really sit in that emotion and experience it. And this is what keeps our life in this very narrow place. We all need help and support in our lives, and that's how I like to look at coaching. It's a way of getting support with the things that we aren't able to necessarily do for ourselves, and we need help to see where the problem lies. To ask for support is a real act of courage. It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to say, hey, I don't have this all figured out. I need help with this. I love Brené Brown's definition of vulnerability. She defines it as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And in order to have courage, we need to be vulnerable. And it's so funny, right? Because courage is something that most all of us would see as a positive emotion. We all want to feel courageous and brave in our lives. I would plot courage up there around the +5, +6 mark on that scale. But if in order to be courageous, we need to show vulnerability, and the definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, we can say that most likely those 3 emotions we would put in the negative side of the scale. There aren't many people who put their hand up and say, yep, I want to feel uncertain, I want to feel at risk, and I want to feel emotionally exposed. It's not something we tend to do on a daily basis. But in order to experience that courage and get the results that we want in our life and in our business and in our relationships, then we need to be willing to experience those negative emotions of uncertainty, risk, and potential emotional exposure. So if we can experience those things down at that -7, -8 range, then we're going to be capable of experiencing the +7, +8 side of emotions. That's how I view my coaching. It is about helping my clients to open up to this range and embrace all the emotions that are available to them. And this is what leads to a richer, more lived life. In my experience, right before clients come to me for coaching, they've experienced some or usually all of these things. And in complete transparency, I have experienced all of these before I booked my first ever session with my coach. The first one is they are distracted and obsessed by social media. I know most people can relate to this one if you are an artist or a creative business owner. I see people all the time obsessing about algorithms. They are trying to beat the system. And just as a side note, I heard that apparently, it may be an urban legend, but Instagram deliberately make the algorithm so random because they want people to invest money in advertising and sponsored posts to try and beat it and try and figure it out. And as I said, that could be a complete urban myth, but I'm kind of inclined to believe that there may be some truth in there. They also spend hours each day, quote unquote, networking on social media. They're liking different accounts, they're commenting on different accounts, they're following different people, all in the name of networking. They also are obsessed and completely focused on getting likes and followers. I see this all the time in the creative industries. I see photographers and artists and writers just constantly pushing more and more and more content out there, driving this obsession to get more likes and more exposure. But really behind it, it's not actually helping them in their business. It's not giving them better lives or better business or making them more money at the end of the day. One of the coaches I worked with a few years ago said something that has stuck with me since that day. He said, if I were to give you 10,000 followers or 10,000 newsletter subscribers today, who were all hot leads, who were all interested in what it is that you're doing, how would you make money out of them tomorrow? And it just blew my mind, right? It's such an interesting concept. We think that we just need more numbers and then we'll be better. We'll sell more art, we'll book more commissions, we'll get more clients, we'll fill up our schedules. But it's often not the case because we often don't have anything to sell. And I see this all the time with social media. People are spending so much of their time and energy and often money trying to get this amazing social media following, but they actually don't have a way to make any money off those people who are following them. The second one is that they believe that they need to work harder and produce more. It's this idea of we just need to be tougher on ourselves, we just need to work more hours, we need to hustle more, we need to make more pitches, and it's this idea of harder equals better, which is never the case. The third thing is having no or little structure to their days. This is something that I will admit I still have to do some work on myself, and it took me a long time to learn this lesson. As creatives and artists, we typically don't like structure. You know, there are a few people out there who really thrive on structure, but typically, as a broad observation of the creative community, we like to work when we're inspired. We'll work right into the night if we're feeling in the zone. We'll take days off to try and revisit our muse. We have no or little structure. And what I've found for me personally, and with so many of the clients I've worked with, is that we're always in the grey. We're not quite off the clock, but we're not quite working. And this can be great if you are coming up with some new creative concepts or ideas, but to constantly be living and working from that space creates zero momentum and just leaves us feeling confused or overwhelmed. We have this running to-do list that is endless, and we often keep it in our head. We don't even have it written down on a piece of paper, let alone have it scheduled into our calendars. It means that we are constantly reactionary and we don't make any progress. If you listened to last week's episode, you would have heard me speak about being a slave to your email, and this is how I used to work. My email was almost like my manager or my boss. It would dictate how my day was going to look, what I was going to work in, and how I was going to feel. And having no or little structure to your days, whether you have a creative business or you identify more as being an artist, being in this grey area often does not serve us, and it just keeps us stuck in that loop that we feel we can't break out of. Number 4 is being endlessly confused, and I kind of touched on this with the previous point. We often allow ourselves to just not know things, to not know what one to choose, to not know what decision to make. We sit there pondering all the different options we could do, and we avoid taking any action. But what I want you to realize is that taking no action is a choice. You're not avoiding making a choice. You're just choosing not to do anything. So if you're going to make a choice, it may as well be one that's got some potential to change, right? Often people avoid taking an action, and then they eventually do take an action, but they've no sooner taken the action than they're second guessing, was that the right thing to do? Maybe I should have chosen the other one. Maybe there was a better idea altogether that I hadn't even thought of. And then they're back to square one. And they get stuck in this endless cycle of confusion and indecision. And that is what holds so many creatives back. What the common thread here is that these are all thoughts that we're just choosing to believe. We're choosing to believe that that's just how it is. We're choosing to believe that we need to be on social media all the time in order to have better lives as creatives and artists. We're choosing to believe that we don't like structure. We're choosing to believe that we need to work harder and we need to produce more. And we're choosing to believe that we don't know what to choose. We confirm this to ourselves by staying in this loop and looking for evidence of it. We constantly look for evidence to reaffirm that we're in the right place, but all these circumstances externally are what's holding us back, and we don't like to take ownership of that. So, how can something like coaching help with this? The thing about coaching is it helps to show you your thinking, and we can't do this by ourselves. I get coached on a weekly basis, and there's so many things that even though I know the concepts, I cannot see through it because I'm so deep in it. Just yesterday, I was on a session with my coach, and I went on the call without there being any major drama, major issue, major stress that I really wanted to focus on. And I started with, well, I don't really have anything, but there's just a little niggly thing. And I, as a coach, should know better, because I know when my clients say that to me, that often the little niggly thing is much more significant in other areas of their life than they even realize. And I know we're always in for a really good session when they come with that. As I went through this session with my coach yesterday, I could see that what was this little seemingly insignificant thing was playing out in so many different ways in so many different areas of my life. And I would not have been able to see that if I hadn't had a coach there to show me how I was thinking about it. I love this with clients, that they don't have to dive into the big, deep, heavy stuff. Often if there's a lot of things going on in their lives and they're in periods of huge change and transition, and there's some really, really deep, hard emotions attached to those circumstances in their life, then to dive straight in there can feel overwhelming. It's just too big to unpack, and so that's why we often just turn away and we will distract ourselves, usually by overworking, overeating, overdrinking, overexercising, because we don't want to face the bigness of it. But if we can address some of the smaller issues, then we're much more willing to see it from a different point of view. We're not so attached to those beliefs because they don't seem like such a big deal. So that's where coaching can really help. With those little insignificant things, it can really have a massive transformational impact on some bigger issues and themes that are happening in people's lives. Coaching in the style that I practice is about showing my clients their thinking and helping them see why they're getting the results that they are getting. And if they're not the results that they want, then they have the power to change their thinking to get a different result. The thoughts that we think are the reason we feel the feelings and emotions that we feel. And it's from that place, from those feelings and emotions, that we then take actions, or sometimes we take no action. And it's because of those actions or inactions that we get the results we get. So my job is just to purely help clients see their thinking and help them change to get results that are more aligned with what they want for their life. Coaching gives focus and clarity, and one of the gifts that I've received through being coached regularly is that it creates massive momentum in my business and in my life. It's not that I don't get stuck or feel crippling indecision at times. That certainly does happen to me. It's that I get coached through this so I don't stay in that place and make that my new normal. Staying in that space of fear and self-judgment does not serve anyone. It doesn't serve you or your family or your partner or your potential customers or clients who are out there waiting for you to get some momentum behind you and make those changes. I know from my own personal experience of being coached that it is without a doubt the best use of my time and my money. And when I've got my thinking clear and I know exactly what I want to create, then it makes all those other things like social media and pitching new work to new clients so much more effective. We've got it back to front. We think we need to fix all the external stuff first, but if we can change how we're thinking about it and have an awareness around that, then the other things are so much more effective in creating that life and business that we dream of having. That's all for this week, guys. For updates, be sure and subscribe to my newsletter over at varilongmuir.com and come and follow along over on Instagram. I'm at Vari Longmuir. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd love for you to come check out my private coaching service for artists and creatives. Maybe you're struggling to commit to just one of the hundreds of ideas you have, or perhaps your confidence has taken a bit of a dive after that epic fail. Regardless of what you're struggling with, a single coaching session can give you the focus and clarity you need to make the next right move for you. Head on over to varilongmuir.com/coaching for more information and to book your session.